Hello, my name is Marty, and I am a college senior. My major is linguistics. I never really had the perfect relationship with my parents. I mean, they were cool and all, but never loving. And even that would not have hurt if they were just that kind of parents, but no, they were actually not. They could be loving and attentive and supporting parents, and the proof is my adopted brother, Mason. They have been nicer to him than me, their own son. Do not get me wrong, guys. I am all for them giving an orphan child a loving family, but I hate them for forgetting that I needed to. We have had our issues because of their partial behavior towards me and Mason, but it was all that I was accepting, until it came to college. So my younger, adopted brother was still in high school when I moved out for college. Moving out, covering my tuition, all of it at the age of 18, was not something I had thought adulthood would be like. I faced big financial blocks, and when I finally swallowed my pride and went to my parents for help, they refused. They straight up said that I was old enough to be able to provide for myself, so if I cannot do that, the fault is in my ways. My dad had said that their responsibility was to make me able to provide for myself. They took care of me till high school, and now I am on my own. My mother said I was always welcomed on Thanksgiving and Christmas, but it was clear that I was welcome at only those times. It hurt. It hurt so much to have your parents abandon you like that in the time of need. They treated me like a foster care and threw me out as soon as I turned 18. Still, I was a big boy now, so I told myself to suck it up. I worked 2 jobs, failed my first semester, repeated that whole year. I wrote for ghostwriting companies, gave language classes to high school students. I tried my best, and I still am. I still struggle to make the ends meet, but somehow I survive. My goal is to survive till graduation, and then I will take a full-time job and stop further studying. I can continue it later when I have a steady income. Meanwhile, back at home, my adopted brother lived like a crown prince. Every year when I went to home for any holiday, he had something new. Last year on Christmas, he got a car. A freaking car! I begged my dad, but he never let me get a car in school, saying I could take the bus to school, or better, I could walk to school, saying it was better for my health. My dinner turned to ash in my mouth when Mason gave me that smirk asking me if I wanted to have a drive. He was mocking me. I am in my last year of college and I still do not have a car, and that is because I am saving every penny to pay for my tuition. The bratty, spoiled prick would not know one thing about making money. I had thought he would not survive in college when my parents surprised me with this. So the thing is, this year Mason is supposed to go to college. He got into no Ivy League's college my mother made him apply to, so he settled for a private one on the West Coast. And my parents agreed to financially support him until he graduates the college. I was so shocked, and they just did not pay his tuition fee, but his outer expenses, his dorm, his food, his car's insurance. This was a mean blow from my parents. I did not care anymore. I borrowed a friend's car and drove home. They acted so nonchalant about the whole situation with Mason. My mother at least had a little heart to look worried when she saw me show up unexpectedly. I could have mistaken anger for worry since it was neither Thanksgiving nor Christmas, and she made it very clear that those are the only times I was welcome here. I went ahead and just asked them why are they helping Mason with the money when they basically threw me out at the mercy of the Lord when I went to college. My dad got stiff but then said that Mason's major is music and it is hard to find a living in that at first, so they had to. I waited tables so I could afford food, and my major is linguistics. Their excuse was bullshit. I cried and told my parents that night that they do not have to worry about setting another plate. They can give everything to the son they love the most. I have always fended for myself, and I again will. I walked out of them. I am so hurt and I cannot understand why they never loved me. And I hate Mason. I remember my dad taking me out to play and my mom cooking my favorite breakfast before they brought Mason home. Am I the a-hole for hating an orphan boy? Remember the time I cried here about how hard it was to make the ends meet? Well, that time for me is over. I had graduated college and started to work. After 3 years of just working and doing nothing, I achieved the financial stability I always wanted. I got a car. I can pay my rent in advance. I have some money saved on the side, and if I wish, I can start with my plan of further studies in a few months. Life is hard, but life is good. And karma is cruel, but it is also a bitch. This update is 3 years later than the first one, and it is because, guys, my beloved adopted brother Mason called me last week in the middle of the night begging me to come pick him up. Last I remember, he was in California and I live in Chicago. I did not want to, but he sounded afraid and sick on the call, so I asked him to send me his location. I went to pick him up, and from one look, I knew all the money my parents threw at this boy went to waste, because they all went to drugs. He was dressed in unwashed clothes, soaking from the rain, and his eyes were bloodshot. He hugged me as soon as I got into the car and started crying. I knew what was coming. I knew it. He was begging for money. Geez, I hated the boy, but not this much. His state almost spiked up the feeling of pity in my heart, but I hardened myself. I told him to explain his homeless situation to me, and all he did was beg me for a little money, saying that he owes it to someone and they will kill him if he does not return it. I had no time nor money for this, but he was still my brother and I grew up with him. I saw him since he was 3 months old. I cannot just kick him out of the car. I told him that I was taking him to my place, and there we could discuss what happened. He fell asleep in 15 minutes of the drive. Good, because I drove him to my parents', his parents' house. It was just a 40 minutes drive from Chicago, and I think they should see what all the money they put into has become. Might be a little a-hole move as a brother, but in my defense, I was wrong too. I am back in my apartment in Chicago, and let me tell you how eventful my last night and the day has been. I reached my parents' house at around 2 in the morning. I was nervous. The time I came here to tell them how shitty of parents they had been to me was the last time I had ever talked to them. After that, it was nothing. Even my mother never bothered to call or text to just ask how I was or to come visit me, even though I live less than an hour away. So yes, I was nervous, but not scared. They threw me out and I managed to survive and make a life for myself. They gave all my share of love and support to the junkie hanging in my arm, so they can now see him. I rang the doorbell. It took 15 minutes for my mom and dad to climb down the stairs in their robes. They looked at me and then at Mason, who was barely in the condition of knowing where he was. There was a look of surprise in their eyes, but it was not for Mason. They were surprised to see me. They knew about Mason falling into the trap of drugs. I dragged Mason in, putting him on the couch in the living room, and then explained both of them why or how he was with me. They looked sad. I was about to leave when my mother stopped me and told me to have some coffee. I felt the tension there, and even though I did not want to stay, I stayed just for the sake of finding out about all this Mason matter. We sat on the kitchen table and my mom started. Apparently, Mason had dropped out of college a year later he joined. More like he was kicked out. The authorities called Dad and told him that he had done damage to the campus property and that he had to pay for it. My dad did pay for it, but was very disappointed. He confronted Mason. He asked him to come home and join the community college to at least complete it and then start work. But Mason refused. Dad tried to cut him off, but then the worst thing happened. Some goons came to the house threatening my dad that they will hurt Mason if they did not get their money back. My dad again paid the money and tried to drag Mason home. He did not come home but ran away 2 days later. They went to California and there found out he fell into drugs and all these things. My mother started crying at this point. She said that they had put him into a rehab in California and that was 4 months ago. It was the last time they had seen him before I brought him here. I had no solution for them. I told them they could put him in rehab closer to home. I did not have anything more to say, so I left. But I hate to admit that I felt a sick kind of joy when both my parents hugged me and told me to come home for dinner this Thanksgiving. Am I the a-hole for being happy that my brother flunked? Not the a-hole. I won't even blame your brother. It was your parents who were at the wrong. They made both their sons resent each other because of their twisted ways of parenting. So not your fault, buddy. You helped your brother after all this. That says you are a good human being. Well, your brother's life is kind of ruined, and you are happy that now your mother wants to invite you for dinner? That is kind of petty and mean. I would say you are an a-hole if you cannot understand the concept of empathy. So, my dad and stepmom have way too many kids. I, 15 female, have a bio sister, 13 female, and 7 adopted siblings, 3 boys and 4 girls. All of them were in foster care and most of them have some issues and you have to walk on eggshells around them. This story is mostly about the oldest, Abby, 15 female. They just took Abby in a few months ago and are trying to adopt her. Before Abby, my dad and stepmom said that they were done fostering and adopting kids, but 2 girls they adopted like 3 years ago are Abby's bio sisters, so they decided to take her in too. I'd have to say, Abby's the worst out of the adopted kids. She doesn't really talk when we're all together. She just sits next to my stepmom or one of the nannies. She also gets really weird about her stuff. Like if she had a pack of cookies and I ate one, she wouldn't eat them anymore and would go find something else to eat. Same with video games. She likes to play Minecraft and she'll let us join her, but if you touch anything that she built, the whole world is suddenly ruined for her. My dad and stepmom put a snack bar in Abby's room because there are days where she won't leave her room and sometimes doesn't let anybody in, and they think this will get her to eat on those days. I checked it out once when she was in therapy and she has really good snacks in there. She also loves music and has a crap ton of headphones. Like she has AirPods Pro, AirPods Max, 2 different kinds of Bose headphones, and another kind but I don't know what it is. She came with one of those Bose and the other kind, but the rest were gifts from my dad, stepmom, and their family. She always has headphones on and makes sure they're all charged all the time. It's kinda an obsession for her. Abby and my stepmom and my sister were hanging out in my dad's room, and I needed headphones but I couldn't find mine, so I went to Abby's room, which is strictly off limits to anyone besides my stepmom and one of the nannies, borrowed the AirPods Maxes and took a fruit roll-up and bag of cookies from the snack bar. No harm was done and I was going to charge the headphones and give them back when I was done with them. Abby went into her room and knew that someone wasn't there and threw a temper tantrum. It took my stepmom and the nanny all day to calm her down. They found out I went in her room and tried to ground me, but I think she was overreacting and if anything, she should be punished for the temper tantrum. After they tried to ground me, I called my mom, told her what happened, and she came to pick me up so I wouldn't be grounded for Abby's temper tantrum. Now my dad's mad at me for breaking the rules and going to my mom to get out of punishment, and my mom for not punishing me, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole. You're the a-hole. It sounds like Abby might be autistic or suffering from some sort of abuse in her past. There is a reason people aren't allowed in her room. There is a reason that she acts the way that she does. What's worse is that it sounds like she has never done anything to cause you to be so casual about ignoring her boundaries. If I were your dad, I would tell you to just stay at your mom's until you are ready to apologize and accept your grounding. I would also add to the grounding for playing the "I'll just go to my mom's" card. You're the a-hole. Foster kids can be very difficult, especially when they are new to a family. Having difficulty adapting to that doesn't make you or her a-holes though. That is going to take time. What does make you an a-hole is going into her room, which you know is off limits, stealing, not borrowing her stuff, which you know from past experience she will never use again, since won't use stuff that other people have used, and also for going to your mom to avoid a punishment that you earned for breaking rules set in place to make her feel safe. Congratulations. You have just undone months of work your family have put into trying to get Abby to trust you all by proving that you can't be trusted. You could have asked, since they were all in the house with you, but instead, you snuck around behind everyone's back to get what you wanted. My mother passed away last year, and the entire process is about to come to an end in just a few weeks. For the past 6 months, my husband has been looking at a multitude of things that on a regular day we definitely cannot afford. He'd have to use credit or save up for weeks or months. A person can wish for stuff or want to work towards a treat for themselves, but he hasn't made an effort to save up for these expensive purchases. Instead, he's been asking for updates on the legal process and asking how much longer it's going to take. He's even asked me several times about an estimated amount. I've given him very little to no information because at this time, things can still drastically change, with a creditor popping up and saying that money is owed or etc. He's not the most responsible person with money. I've managed the finances full-time for the past 3 years straight. He used to manage our finances, but he has a history of sabotaging our financial goals and blowing our budgets. My intention is to use half of my inheritance to move our family into a house, then save 40% to help my children in the future, like graduations, college, trips, their first cars, etc., and have a small emergency fund. Something we couldn't do before because my husband kept giving money to his side of the family to help them with bills, groceries, legal troubles, etc., draining our accounts and leading our family to homelessness 3 separate times. I understand that it's family, you have to try and help somehow, but letting your 3 children and wife become homeless because an adult family member couldn't be responsible enough to pay their own bills or got into legal trouble is a hard thing for me to fully understand. I really don't want to wake up one day and find out that every cent has been spent behind my back. I'd like to open an account in my name and follow through with the plan I mentioned above. He has made it clear that intends to buy a new vehicle, tech, game system, and other items just for him, not our children or to improve our family's future. When I talk about investing or saving, he says that life is too short for that. I told him that it wasn't about us, it was about our children, and his response was that when our children become adults, they should work for what they want. The statement seems backwards considering his actions as of late. I know for sure that if his parents pass, we will have to pay off their debts and cover all the unknown costs out of pocket. Financially speaking, I started my marriage with my husband completely debt-free. And I have worked for years to finally get him to be debt-free as well. But over the past 10 years, he's paid off his parents' credit card and IRS debts. They live paycheck to paycheck and think saving money is pointless. I'm not sure if I'm making the right choice, but I really just want my children to have the same happy and stress-free childhood I had. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Get a lawyer to help set everything up so he has no claim to the money ever. Open a separate account and don't put his name on the house deed. Also, are you in the US? Because you won't have to pay off his parents' debts. It comes out of their estate, and if the estate doesn't have any money, it doesn't come from family. Not the a-hole. Better lie to him about the amount and the timing. Say it's a fraction of the true amount and that it will take 2 years. Then figure out in the interim what you need to do to safeguard it from him. It's your windfall, and if you want to use it to secure your housing situation and your children's futures, that is perfectly fine. Better talk to a lawyer soon because nothing stops him from opening a new credit card and charging all these new toys with the intention to pay them off with your inheritance.